Hey, my name is Trevor, and today we're going to be diving back into Tasha's Cauldron of Everything as we take a look at the Psi Warrior subclass, a class I'm super excited about. So sit back and let me show you how I would build it today on Rolling with Advantage. Today, as we dive into the Psi Warrior, the new subclass in Tasha's, this is a fighter subclass, so we can take it level 3. And one of the things that we're going to take a look at is as we level up with all the other psionic subclasses that we get a pool of dice that we can use to augment our abilities. They start off as D6s, and they move up to D8s at level 5, and so forth and so on. And we get dice equal to the number of our proficiency modifier doubled. So at level 1, if our proficiency modifier is 2, then means we have 4 of these dice. There's also a really nice mechanic that they gave us where basically once per short or long rest, we can use a bonus action to get one of those dice back as a bonus action, which is really cool. So you're going to have lots of abilities to use these, and let's see the abilities we get at level 3 that we can use these dice with. The first thing that we get is Protective Field. Now, this is pretty cool because what this allows us to do is anytime someone takes damage within 30 feet of you, including yourself, you can expend one of these dice, you roll the dice, you add your intelligence modifier, and then you reduce that damage by whatever you rolled. So this is going to be a class that we're going to need. It's a fighter that's going to need high intelligence, which is something we've only seen and also in the Eldritch Knight, but this is cool that we have another intelligent fighter. So that's what we're going to have. So roll your die as a reaction, and then you basically create a field, a force field around yourself or the other person. The other thing that we get is Psionic Strike. This ability I'm really excited about is basically once on each of your turns, immediately after you hit a target within 30 feet of you with an attack and deal damage to it with a weapon, you can expend a psionic energy die, roll it, and deal force damage equal to the number plus your intelligence modifier. Now, the cool thing about this is how it's worded. It works a lot like a Paladin Smite. We can do that after we see what we roll. So if we roll a crit, we can double up on that damage. So that's a really cool thing. I'm going to show you how I would build it today to kind of really cue off of that idea of kind of digging for crits for Psionic Strike. Again, this is a once per turn ability, but at first level we're looking, at third level when this comes online, you're gonna have 4 5 options. If we roll one, get one of them back with our ability. So lots of ways to use this early on. Now the final thing we get at third level is going to be Telekinetic Movement. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you this ability is going to be one of those that a lot of players are going to sleep on, and I think this is one of the most powerful abilities that this subclass gets. You can move an object or a creature with your mind. As an action, you target one loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature other than yourself. You can see that target, and it is within 30 feet of you. You can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. There are so many uses for this. It is unoccupied, so you have to kind of figure out, like, you can basically use your action to move someone into position. Hey, this rogue needs to be, set up the perfect assassination. You can move the person. There's just so many good things that you can do with this. And alternatively, if it's a tiny object, you can move it to your hand. You can move it horizontally, vertically, both, and then once you take this action, you can't do it again until you take a rest, unless you use one of your psionic energy die. So it's cool that once per rest, I can use this once without using any dice. That's super cool. So that's what we get at third level. Now at 7th level, we get the Psi Powered Leap, and as a bonus action, you can propel your body with your mind. You gain a flying speed equal to twice your walking speed until the end of your next turn. You can use this as a bonus action. You can basically, this is the same thing as Telekinetic Movement. I can use this once per short or long rest. If I want to use it again, I've got to use up one of my psionic energy dice. The other thing that I get at level 7 is going to be Telekinetic Thrust. When I deal damage to a target with Psionic Strike, so if I use the previous ability at level 3, I can basically cue this into it. I can make that target have a strength saving throw equal to 8 plus my proficiency bonus plus intelligence modifier. If he fails, then he is knocked prone or moved 10 feet in any direction horizontally. That's a really long way to push someone or also knock them down. That's really cool too, because like if you've got multi-attack, if you use this on the first one, knock them prone, then the next attack would have advantage. A lot of cool things that you can do with that. At 10th level, we get this ability where we bolster our mind. We have resistance to psychic damage. We can also use one of those dice to get out of being charmed or frightened. At 15th level, we have Bulwark of Force, where we put this giant force field up, and everybody basically gets cover as long as this thing is up. And then finally, at 18th level, I get the ability to cast Telekinesis, which is pretty cool. So, all in all, there's a lot to unpack here, but we really want to focus in on the 3rd and 7th level, because I find most of our games that we play are in that pre-10, 1 to 10 range. And so I'm going to kind of just show you today my first thought of making this character a Psi Warrior. Now, what I would do is going over here, I would actually go into D&D Beyond. Be sure you click on the optional class features and customize your origin. This is the new Tasha's feature that we get. And for me, I'm picking an Eladrin. I want to double down on the idea of being really mobile. I know that at 7th level I get the ability to kind of bonus action fly, but with an Eladrin I also get the ability to phase step. Now this is basically gives me a Misty Step. Now depending on which one you pick, it has some other abilities with it, and the saves a lot of times on these are using your charisma modifier. Don't get caught up on that. We're not building it around that. We're building it on the fact that I just want to have mobility. Now, I'm going to keep the 2 points in dexterity, but I'm going to use Origin Manager to select the other one. I don't want the point in charisma. I want it in intelligence. So this is going to be a dex-based fighter with some intelligence onto it as well to cue off of the Psi Warrior abilities. So we're going to go ahead and just make a 6th level character. I'm going to kind of give you my thoughts on this. For proficiencies, I took history and acrobatics because, again, we're making him dex and intelligence based. Fighting style, I'm going to pick up dueling. I see this guy as a sword and border, actually rapier and shield. This is what we're going to be doing today. Of course, we get second wind, action surge like every other fighter. We talked about the psionic abilities I get at level 3. And what I'm trying to do here is at 4th level, I'm going to take Elven Accuracy, and I'm going to put a point here in Intelligence. I'll show you why here in a second. But basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a way to dig for crits with my rapier. So what I want to do is if I get advantage, this allows me to basically roll an extra dice to dig for those crits as long as I'm using a dex, intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So this doesn't work with fighter like a strength. It works with fighter dex, not strength. So the idea here is if I'm fencing with a rapier, I can hit a guy, and I get if I have advantage, then I get 3 dice instead of 2. So the idea here is if I land that crit, as soon as I do, I'm going to go and say, okay, I rolled a crit. I'm going to go and I'm going to use my my Psionic Strike to add my D6 dice, or at 5th level D8 and beyond, and then that is doubled. So let's just say 5th level, I hit a guy. I land a crit with my rapier. I'm going to do a D8. I'm going to do another Psionic Strike for an additional D8. I'm going to double that for 4 D8s. That's like a little mini smite that I can be digging with for my damage. And I also think this character is also very defensive with the protective field as well. So I like the fact that, much like we saw with the Rune Knight, this class can really be both offensive and defensive. So I like that idea. It's a good design space that we can kind of do both. And at 6th level, I'm going to take the new Piercer feat. I'm doubling down on this idea of trying to land those big crits. So we put a point in Dex. I'm going to show you how we did our stat allocation here in a second. And what the Piercer feat does is once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals piercing damage, you can re-roll one of the attack damage dice. Basically, look at this. If you roll a 1 or 2, you get to re-roll it. At least once per turn. Now, when I score a critical hit that deals piercing damage, I can roll 1 additional damage die when determining the extra piercing damage. So I'm just trying to double down on crit fishing with Elven Accuracy, landing the big psionic attack, and then adding more damage onto it. So I'm trying to get my rapier to deal as much damage as possible. I think this is a fun way to play. It's an agile a character that's going to have ability to fly at 7th level as a bonus action. It's limited, but we're talking about a fighter having mobility. As an Eladrin, I can pick up the Elven Accuracy. I get to pick up Misty Step. For a point buy, I put 10 in strength, I put 15 in dex. With 2 points, I'm going to start off with a game with 17. I'm going to pick up another point in dex at level 6. When I pick up Piercer, that'll get me to 18. 14 Constitution, 13 Intelligence to start. I'm going to put another point in it later. We want to have some Intelligence so that we can queue off of the abilities and make those abilities hit just a little bit harder or react a little bit more damage. I don't see like needing a huge Intelligence, but I do want to have some. So for background here, I decided I wanted to be the investigator. Since we're going to have pretty decent intelligence, I went ahead and took investigation and took insight. I just like the idea of, playing the intelligent fighter, and he kind of, maybe you can kind of use like, well, if he's, got psionic ability, maybe your DM will let you kind of role play, seeing things a little bit differently. I think it'd be kind of fun to play the investigator. So this is what my 6th level Psi Warrior looks like. This is my Eladrin. I like the fact that this has a lot of buttons to push. I can Misty Step, I can move up, I can protect people with my psionic abilities. I can set up very large psionic strikes. With my, at 5th level, moves up to a D8, so I can hit someone with a rapier. I can then do a psionic strike. If I'm using Piercer, I can re-roll one of those dice. If I landed a crit, all of that is doubled, and then I add more damage on top of it with Piercer. The idea is that he can do a lot of damage with just a rapier. He's super defensive while still being agile, because this character is going to be wearing, lighter armor, but being very, very dexterous. So I like the idea of this character. It kind of goes a little against the norm that we normally see the big bruiser fighter. This is the nimble, intelligent fighter, psionic abilities, and kind of using almost Jedi-esque in a way, and also using a lighter weapon. So I really like this character concept. Now, if anyone out there has actually played a Psi Warrior, I would love to hear your feedback. If you built it differently or you came up with other cool combos, please leave a comment below, or you can join our Discord. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Until next time, let's keep rolling with advantage and keep the ideas coming. Thanks.